Okay, let me see if I got this straight. In order to be grounded, I've got to be crazy. And I must be crazy to keep flying. But if I ask to be grounded, that means I'm not crazy anymore and I have to keep flying.
You've got it. That's catch-22.
Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come.
His will be done. Oh, Frank, my lips are hot. Oh, kiss my hot lips.
We have got to share this with the rest of us.
Frank. Oh.
What the hell is that?
Oh, Frank. Wait a second.
What is it?
Turn the light off. No, turn the light off.
I can no longer sit back and allow communist infiltration, communist indoctrination, communist subversion, and the international communist conspiracy to sap and impurify all of our precious bodily fluids.
Whom it may concern, and that's everybody upon this earth, I'm going to tell you a top secret story. My true story is one of a young man who was groomed by the military to be the hangman for humanity. I was placed on a Titan II missile launch crew, and we were charged by oath to be the ones who would unleash the opening and closing act of the nuclear battle of Armageddon. My confession is this. I was one who was there in October of '64 when we received a launch order, not knowing it was a terrible mistake until it was almost too late. We were going for the nuclear throat, and we had our curtain slammed on our opening act and told it never happened, sworn to secrecy. But I know different, having been there as the main star of this fatal attraction.
This all started way back in the 70s when I was in LA producing the Firesign Theater on the radio and working for PBS producing there at KCET in LA. And I met Clair Tomlinson. He was introduced to me one night, and he was introduced to somebody who had come to Hollywood because they had a story they wanted to get told. Well, everybody in Hollywood wants to get a story told, and said, I'm too busy to talk, and he said, I dig it. He said, I just came to try and get the story told of the night we almost blew up the world. And I said, what? Well, then I was in an Air Force Titan II missile squadron, and I was on duty the night that they accidentally gave the order to launch all-out nuclear war. And I said, sit down, let's talk about this. Because, working with the Firesign Theater and other such underground entities, there was a lot of talk out about what was going on, from everything from the JFK assassination to accidental nuclear war. And so I spent most of that night back up at my place with Clair Tomlinson, either writhing on the floor in unbelievable laughter, just incredible amounts of laughter because of his Mark Twain take on it all, to being just terrified about what I was hearing about how the whole ICBM nuclear missile thing went down. And after I heard the story, I thought, this story's got to be told. I mean, they came within a few seconds by accident of launching every nuclear weapon we had in the U.S. nuclear arsenal. And when I found out why it happened, it was even more absurd. It was totally absurd, impossibly absurd, and extremely dangerous. So we decided to write a screenplay, thinking that would get done, in no time at all, because it was such an important subject. And nothing. You know, great script. Everybody liked it. We called it Nuclear Warriors, a serious comedy. But they had green light-itis. They were afraid of it. On top of simply the fact that it's a true story and how it got told through Clair, was the fact that everybody, for example, learned that whenever they were out on alert, they were in their underwear. Why? Because the air conditioning didn't work. It never worked. Why? Because the Air Force takes the lowest bid on everything it buys, including the L-65, which is the teletype war order machine that sends out the orders to launch. So, I mean, he did 4 years, you know, in a Titan II missile silo in his underwear with the other 3 guys in a crew because the air conditioning didn't work. Of course, the officers still had to wear their guns and their launch keys because that was like a, you know, a treason if they took that off. You know, you had the capital punishment, a firing squad. You can't do that, but you can do the thing in your underwear.
I heard the pounding of the commander's feet as he came bounding down the stairs, 2 at a time. Now, mind you, he just got out of bed. He was dead asleep. The klaxon went off. It's right above the bed. Like I say, it'll blow you right out of bed. He comes bounding down the stairs. He's got his launch key on a chain around his neck. He's got his ID tags around his neck on a chain. He's got his belt, his holster, his .38 stub-nose pistol stuck in his side, and he's got his BDDs on. That's all. And he comes running down to the command council. He sits down, and he's ready to blow millions of people away now in his BDDs.
The night duty commander at Omaha SAC took his buddy from Korea down there. He ripped off the active launch message from above the practice console and switched the practice console to active. And sat down and said, look, here's how it works. And started punching in the codes for the active launch message of that particular night. Now, the real officer that was on command at the other end of the room saw all the confirm lights coming on from our submarines, from the B-52s, you know, the Strategic Air Command, to Europe, to everywhere, saying, yeah, okay, we're ready. This guy turns around and sees what this commander's doing, and whoever this guy is, because we've never found out, he was a lieutenant, I think was the story they later told at the briefing, because they did tell everybody what happened. Lieutenant realizes what's going on, and realizes that they're already through the first 2 stages.
So the colonel, a little rusty on his procedures, pushed the button on the council alternate, and the major proceeded to read the message. Well, what the colonel didn't know is that he, at that time, he made the mistake of pushing the wrong button, and he made the alternate council the primary council. He made the primary council the alternate council, and when the major read the blue -1, it went out to the entire nuclear arsenal that the United States Air Force had at that time all over the world. And yes, my missile site was one of them. I was on duty that night. I received it.
Clair's out in the missile silo, screaming at his commander, you got to check this out. There's not a problem, you know? I mean, you just can't just launch it like that, right? And, of course, because of all these strange, absurd Air Force regulations, they can't check it. They can't call Omaha because the Russians, that might be the Russians calling to tell them to stop the launch. As this commander, this freaked out commander in Omaha, turned right around, punched the voice signaling system and said, all missile sites disregard previous orders, all missile sites stand down. But of course they'd been trained out in the missile silos that that would be the Russians trying to make sure they didn't launch. So Clair's commander wouldn't call and threatened him with a gun if he didn't get back to his post and do what he was told. And Clair, and all of them, having been trained for years to the fact that they would never get an active launch message unless America was already under attack. Clair lived those 3, 4, 5 minutes absolutely certain that New York was gone, that Iowa where he lived was gone or gonna go, that everything he knew, everything in the world was gonna be gone. He lived the actuality of thermonuclear war. And has had a nightmare about it almost every night of his life since. He wakes up back in the hole, pleading with his commander, don't launch. He calls SAC Omaha, and it's against regulations, and we can't do that. You've got to just stand there and launch.
I hate to go to sleep at night for fear of that fiery ghostly flight of nightmares racing across the sky, knowing that the one that wins is the one that dies. And they shall run in the wind and howl of thunder and strike with lightning while you slumber. And you'll never know that what put you under was the wrath of the scientific wonder. Wild nightmares locked in my dreams by the past experience of terrible things, like looking at those mares face to face while unlocking their pearly gates, not knowing it was a terrible mistake until it was almost too late. And ever since then I thank God for every new day and every new saint. Nightmares, nightmares, they have no wings but fly, and they see through the night with invisible eyes. Nightmares, nightmares breed on the deadly fear that some night we'll awake and they'll be here, and they'll sniff us out of the thundering herd and blow us away without so much a word. I hate to go to sleep at night for fear of that fiery ghostly flight. Nightmares, nightmares.
He had a homeless as a street poet over in Carmel, just doing anything, poetry, videos, DVDs, to still try to get this story out because he thought it was so important, because he lived through the nightmare we all don't even want to think about. This is a natural, because it goes directly to people who can understand what we're saying and just get this whole story out in the open about how absolutely ridiculously dangerous this whole thing is with the nuclear weapons. They need to go into stand down. They need to go into what they call stand down, which is about 3 days from being able to launch. But people have got to understand first how everything's up for grabs. It's a crapshoot. It can happen anytime. And when you hear Clair's story, and when you're told how it happened, you realize, oh my God, this is... So, nuclear warriors, and hopefully this will connect with people that can really understand what Clair went through and what he's saying. And some of the poetry and the video that's intercut in this, you'll see. And you'll see him asking for help.
I confess I shall never be the same since that night, for a bomb went off inside my head, and the fallout has been festering all these years. Some of it has manifested itself in a script, a video, and a CD. I seek at this time the person or persons who have the brains, the bucks, the balls, and the bravo to grasp the opportunity that this dark moment in history has to offer in redeeming enlightenment for mankind. I seek professional help. Thank you very much.
So that's the story. We want to do this, and we can do it on this budget. We can do it well on this budget. And what could be a more appropriate time? It's Fukushima and counting. And nuclear accidents do happen. So let's do it. We want to do it. We need the help. Let's do it. Are we done? We're done. I'll turn the camera on.